Davis also handed in his resignation. All of this, of course, revolving around the idea that this is not the Brexit that they voted for in the UK. Here now to discuss Nile Gardiner, former special advisor to Lady Thatcher, currently at the Thatcher Center for Freedom at the Heritage Foundation. Gillian Melcher, Wall Street Journal editorial page writer, and Amber Athey is with us in studio. I'm going to start with you since it's great to see you in person. This is huge news, obviously, and I think it's at least 7 members now of May's cabinet pushing back on this, and it's just a fiery situation.
That's right. And there's actually talk of a vote of no confidence, which of course would take about 15% of the MP and members of her own party having to vote against her, Theresa May. And really what's happening here is that people think she's not taking the Brexit movement seriously. 52% of people in Britain voted to leave the EU. And now you're hearing reports of Donald Trump not even being allowed to meet with Nigel Farage, of course, one of the orchestrators behind that movement, when he goes to Britain later. So really, it all seems like Theresa May is not interested in actually having a hard Brexit that the people voted for. You know,
2 months ago, the market was down big on when in Italy they tried to put someone in a high position that wasn't voted to that position. And when the market crashed, the Chancellor of Germany said, see, that's what happens, you know. And essentially, you get the feeling that there's a big anti-establishment movement on both sides of the Atlantic, but the establishment is the establishment. They don't give this stuff up easy. It's a lot of power. It's a lot of money, Jillian. And I'm really worried that the vote of the people in the UK, they're going to try to sweep it under the rug.
Well, it's a tricky thing, right? Because about half of the overall British exports go to the EU. So they're concerned about keeping the regulation, keeping the terms matching the same. But at the same time, I totally understand why the British people are frustrated with this. The one that rings my mind is 2010. The European Union told water bottlers that they couldn't say that water is good for dehydration. Like, that's the level of ridiculous rules we're dealing with. And I think when they're concerned about the EU dictating the terms, it's the stuff like that they don't like.
Nigel, you know, the Brussels calling the shots. Theresa May seems to be folding to Brussels, and it kind of reminds me of the debate we're having in this country, whether it's tariffs or some other things with respect to President Trump. The establishment draws these hard lines, and it's, I don't think they get it. You know, people vote. The people are saying, hey, this is the way we want it to be. And looks like the establishment is making a last-ditch effort to derail the Brexit.
Well, on Friday, Theresa May, the British Prime Minister, unveiled a new series of proposals for Brexit, which were extremely weak-kneed and which many Brexiteers felt were completely unacceptable and did not go with the spirit of the referendum vote. Over 17 million Britons voted to leave the European Union. There's a growing feeling, I think, within the Conservative Party, and I've just spent most of the day today talking to Conservative MPs in the House of Commons about what's happening. Many Conservative MPs feel the Prime Minister has moved away from the original vision of Brexit, that she's not delivering some of the promises that she made earlier to the British people. You've seen the resignation of 2 very big cabinet figures, David Davis and also Boris Johnson, the Foreign Secretary, today. And so I think you are seeing a tremendous backlash against the Prime Minister's very, very weak plans. Some Conservatives here view it as a surrender to Brussels. That's completely unacceptable, I think, to those who support Brexit.
Niall, is there enough of a pushback now that it could actually ultimately lead to the ouster of Theresa May? Are we talking about perhaps a no confidence vote?
Yeah, well, a no confidence vote would take initially, of course, 48 Conservative MPs writing a letter to the chairman of the 1922 committee expressing no confidence. We could potentially see that. We're not likely to see that, I think, in the next 2 weeks, just 2 more weeks before parliamentary recess, but certainly in the autumn you could see momentum building for a Conservative Party leadership race. And there are several big contenders possibly to take over from Theresa May, most notably, of course, Boris Johnson, the former Foreign Secretary. So certainly the Prime Minister is in a very weak position at the moment. I don't expect, though, you're going to see movement until September or October on this.
Right. In the meantime, the clock is ticking because they still have to get whatever package they agree on to the rest of the EU, and they've got to vet it and they've got to vote on it. It feels like this thing is going to fall apart.
There's a lot of chaos, to be sure, and as Nigel just said, there's a real possibility that people could vote against Theresa May, members of her own party who are frustrated with her soft stance and the whole the whole Brexit affair. So there's really a lot to watch here, and I think it's going to be really interesting to see what happens.
I just feel bad for the businesses in this situation. I think they're contending with so much uncertainty as there's just a failure here to make a good deal.
And it looks like, again, it's, if you look at the timelines, and I don't know how rigid they are, but I don't see how they're going to get it all done. And I feel bad for the people of the UK who make their voices heard, and maybe it won't count. Thank you all very much. Really appreciate it. By the way, we're going to have more on the Brexit fallout with former UK Independence Party leader Nigel Farage. He is the architect of Brexit, so you don't want to miss that.